So 66 people have entered the program so far. If Karen was here, Judge Ruddy was here, she would tell you the success stories. She has stories very similar to yours to tell that are delightful to hear. Unfortunately, I'm not there each day, so I don't have those stories to share. But it has changed the lives of some people considerably, and I think there's a lot of hope for this court. And we're going to continue on it and continue expanding what we're doing.
This isn't necessarily specific to the justice system, but I think crosses across all aspects of what we're talking about today, which is the idea of housing. And Judge Buller-Bennett mentioned the idea of stable housing with at least two of the people that you talked about, that's the critical piece of a lot of this social inclusion and what leads to social exclusion. And it's a challenge for us here in Whitehorse and here in the Yukon is to how do we change our system that allows for housing to be a foundational right of everyone in our community. And the senator this morning mentioned the idea of housing first. Most of you who know me know that this is one of the things that I'm fairly passionate about. But I think it's part of how we're going to change our systems here in the Yukon to be inclusive for everyone. And there are models that exist. One story I will share is a model of a family who had all of their children taken into care because the belief of the system was, this isn't a Yukon story, the belief of the system was that those parents could not parent their children. And so all 6 of their children had been taken into foster care. The community in which they lived said, we do not agree with this. We want those children to be supported, to be raised by their family. So they asked the government to give them all of the money that they were using for those 6 children in foster care, and that community came together and fostered that family. So they brought those 6 children back into the home with the parent and created a foster family for the family. And so there was another family that lived in the home family and allowed that family to stay together. It's a totally different, it's changing the system, it's changing the structure, and that's, I think, what we need to do when we think about housing as a right and a foundational principle of social inclusion, because there are those models that exist to allow us to house everyone that won't actually cost more money, which, again, is that idea of the principle rather than the money.
Thanks. It's such an honor to be here, and I'd asked my colleagues if I could speak last because they're such experts in the field, and I'm here, as a federal employee representing a federal funding program, and so it's a bit random for me to be here. But anyways, when you're looking at the question of changing systems, though, I think there's a couple of different levels that we can do that. And if I look at, say, the results of the Blue Ribbon panel, and I know a number of you in this room would consulted around what should the federal government do differently to make the world work a bit more smoothly for nonprofit organizations, and talk about the path dependency that the senator referred to. Like, it's hugely hard for so many of our government systems to move off that rut that we've been going for years. So don't give up. We're trying, and there is movement happening from the Blue Ribbon panel. That's a massive system, and if we can achieve all that the Blue Ribbon panel put out, then I have great hopes that at the street level, the nonprofits working can be more inclusive more easily, because you won't have the systems up in the funder level to deal with that. And then I think there's another way that perhaps, speaking to my personal beliefs on this, and it's a belief in inclusivity coming from the individual and a personal. And I can remember, Ernie's in the back there somewhere. Once upon a time I was doing some placement work with Ernie at Social Services, and there was one of the clients that I had, and driving down to 2nd Avenue, and I saw her sitting out in front of the 98, and she'd been beaten up and so I just got out of my car and I sat there on my back on the edge of the 98, and we sat there and had a conversation. And for me, the impact was all the people who stepped over our legs. Nobody saw us. And just from me going from head level to floor level, I lost my position in society as such. And so, I've carried that forward when I'm trying to work with people. Or the story of a person that's very, very dear to me, grew up in extreme poverty, alcoholism, all of stories, and how he lived for a week, him and his brothers and sisters, on flour soup. And the whole story of the lunch, not having lunches. And I think it was the senator referred to that as well. And this incredibly proud man, you could see 40 years later the impact on him of having no lunch and where that put him in the classroom and the damage it did to him. And he's done a bunch of time in jail. He's done the addictions thing. And it's something to carry when I'm doing my day-to-day work, the impression of his face as he was impacted. And once you hear those stories, the people that have experienced that, to me, are no longer they and them. They become connected to us in some way. And as someone who is working secondarily from the frontline work, another fellow that is facing right now the most bone-grinding poverty. I simply don't know how he's existing. The expression on his face when he came to me a while back and said, I talked to somebody and they actually cared. And just the look on his face, and you carry that. And I think that's one way we can make systems more inclusive, by carrying an image inside our hearts about what it feels like to be excluded. And for those of us that didn't grow, like Vicki was saying, those of us that didn't grow up with that environment. But if we can carry that forward. So that's really what I wanted to share. This is a wonderful opportunity, and I think we each have a role to play as we carried it forward. Thank you so much for coming and for allowing me to speak.
We'll open the floor for questions or inquiries or reflections that you may have, and please go ahead.
Hi. Hello?
Just identify yourself, please.
Sharon. Public. This is a wonderful panel, and I just wanted to get something in that is a little bit off topic, but also related in a way. I live in a trailer court here, and almost daily I would see the ambulance going by and didn't know what was happening, knew the area, knew the house or trailer. And then this had been going on for a couple of years, and I knew there was alcoholism in the family, so they were having real difficulty. Well, it wasn't until this winter that I found out they had no plumbing, no heating, and no electricity. So I happened to phone an MLA about something else and ended up ranting about this situation. And he kind of goes, well, there's issues, right? And I said, I don't care. Like, this family is living in third world conditions here, and somebody's got to do something about it. Because what I had found out, like, that week was through a source that I won't name, that I believe a lot of people knew about this situation, the police and the ambulance who went there almost daily. And I heard it through the grapevine that this was going on. And I just started saying somebody has to do something, because it seemed like all these people knew about it, but nobody knew what to do or how to go about doing it. So I did notice, because of where I live, that particular person drove by the next day with one of these people in the home, and they have been, I don't know, somehow looked after by the community now, are no longer in that place. So I felt really good about that, because